Hey guys, hope everybody's doing well and staying safe. Sorry about the unplanned hiatus in posting videos. It really hasn't been all that much happening up here. We're just kind of doing our thing, and before you know it, 3 weeks go by. We had some very unseasonably warm weather at the beginning of January. We're talking, above 0 Celsius, where we're usually hovering at -20, -25. So, and on top of that, there was absolutely no snow. So normally the warmer weather comes with a bit of snow, but we haven't had any. This last week, things have kind of cooled down a little bit, back to more seasonably normal temperatures. But still, we haven't had any snow since Christmas. So the tractor hasn't seen all that much use. During that time, I've been kind of going down the YouTube rabbit hole. Been watching a whole bunch of tractor videos. Who doesn't like tractor videos? So I figure, I've had this B2320 for, it'll be 6 years in May. I have 417 hours on it. It's been doing some pretty heavy work. We've been landscaping for most of that time. Figure I'd take everything apart, take all the covers off, and give you guys a tour of how this machine has held up during that time. Now, this machine is no longer in production, but it has been replaced by the 01 series, and I believe there's a 2301 that Kubota makes. I've looked at it. There are some nice changes. I don't think it's anything that would spur me to get rid of this tractor and upgrade to a newer model. This one works perfectly fine for my purposes. However, it seems to me that the underlying chassis is almost identical between those two machines. So while this model is out of production, I'm sure that what we look at today will apply to the new series, the 01 series as well. I don't see why it wouldn't. The model numbers for the engine are the same, so I'm assuming it's the same 3-cylinder diesel that Kubota makes. The hydraulic pump pumps the same volume between this model and the 2301. So I'm assuming that a large portion of the parts that matter are the same. Obviously, there are a few differences. They redesigned the backhoe, and the loader has higher capacities, and the front steering is a little bit different. But again, fundamentally, I'm pretty sure they're pretty similar machines. So let's take all the covers off and see how everything's held up for 6 years and almost 420 hours. Okay, so starting up front, I have had no trouble with the 3-cylinder Kubota diesel. As far as I understand, problems with these engines are fairly rare. Again, 400 hours, pretty heavy loading on this motor sometimes, especially with the snowblower. There are times when I'm snowblowing, the RPMs will drop and it'll start spitting out a little bit of darker color exhaust as it's working pretty hard, but no issues at all. Again, I don't really expect any issues. These motors run for thousands and thousands of hours without any problems. Okay, so looking at the right side, fairly straightforward, kinda. Throttle, mechanical fuel pump, your fuel lines, you can see your glow plugs, and there's the oil sensor in the back. Again, haven't had any trouble. The only problem I did have was when I was moving brush, fairly early into my ownership of this. I hit a stick came and hit the front fuel line, broke the plastic fitting underneath, spilled fuel, but luckily I realized what was going on and pinched off the back fuel line, so I didn't spill very much fuel. Ordered the new part. The parts, I've always been surprised. They're reasonable in price. It wasn't, I think it was a $30 mistake for the entire assembly with a new fuel filter. And so just unplug all the hoses, put everything back together, and the entire system self-primed. So it was quite a simple repair, as it were. And after 400 hours, the fan belt still in good shape. I haven't changed the battery. Everything's been working quite well on that front. A little bit of dirt, but other than that, everything is good. And on the left-hand side, everything working good, no problems with the starter. Again, the alternator right here, which isn't really an alternator, you do have to watch when you're putting accessories on. This doesn't produce all that much power, but I have some lights on the ROPS and haven't had any issue. Again, haven't changed the battery. I've never come out in the morning and the tractor not start, even after it's been sitting for 3 or 4 weeks. We have had some parts where it's been sitting for quite a while. No problems with the battery. Oil filter, very easy to get at. Which makes things nice. It is a little bit dirty, but I will note that even after 400 hours, 420 hours, 6 years, there is no rust on any of the painted portions of the tractor. I'm kind of surprised. You know, you do expect a little bit to show up here or there, but underneath all the dirt is still paint with no rust. None of the welds are rusting. I have surprisingly no rust anywhere to be seen on the painted sections of this machine. Now, one thing that Kubota has done is bump the loader capacity up on the 01 series as compared to this one. It's always nice to have more capacity. It's not going to make me sell this machine and go and run and buy a new one. With the capacity on this one, I can easily carry around full buckets of topsoil and gravel. With wet gravel, it does struggle a bit to lift it high. But again, with those kind of weights and this kind of tractor, you don't really want to be carrying them too high anyway. So it's never been something that stops me from working. I can always carry full buckets without any issues. Now again, with any ground contact, you are going to have wear and tear on your bucket. The tooth bar, the Piranha tooth bars have been excellent. I have two. I have the serrated tooth bar that I typically use in the summer for moving dirt around. Then I have the flat bar for scraping snow. It has a tendency of digging in less to the gravel driveway. Had no trouble with any of the hydraulic hoses. Again, one of the benefits of storing it inside in a garage, if possible, the UV doesn't slowly deteriorate your hydraulic lines. So these lines have been on for 6 years and haven't had any trouble, haven't had to replace any of them. So even where the paint has kind of worn off, still surprised at the lack of rust that forms on the bare metal. If you do, the most I've seen is a couple specks, a few specks of rust on there, and then after 1 or 2 buckets of gravel, it's gone. Okay, moving further back on the machine, I'm not a fan of where they put the fuel cap. It's just awkward lifting 20 liters of diesel. Fortunately, you don't have to do it very often. I've noticed that this tractor really doesn't use much fuel. I can get about 8 hours, I believe about 8 hours of work at 2200 RPMs. I never go through a tank of diesel over the course of a winter, and some winters we can get a ton of snow. Seat is held up very well over the years, no rips, no tears. All I do is, some Armor All a couple times a year. And while this tractor does, I do store it inside. Oftentimes in the summer, if I'm going to work with it multiple days in a row, I just leave it outside. So it has had its share of nights outside, days outside. It's gotten rained on, and the whole works. So it's no stranger to getting wet, that's for sure. But again, everything's has held up quite well. A little bit of paint wearing off of the loader. That's just from general use. But other than that, no real issues on the right-hand side. Now on the left-hand side, you're always going to get a little bit of paint wearing off where you're stepping onto the tractor. It also wears a bit at the rubber mat, a little bit of wear on the sticker. I have seen people put black safety tape over that to prevent it, but again, even though there's exposed steel, it doesn't have a tendency of rusting, which is nice. Pretty easy to get some touch-up paint and go over that, but it wears down pretty quick. Obviously the remedy to that is to put a step underneath. Problem with that is you lose ground clearance, which is a really nice feature of this tractor. The ground clearance is awesome and it's served me well over the years, or it ends up interfering with the mid-mount mower arms. So that's really a no-win situation there. You just kind of live with the little bit of paint wear and touch it up. Now I have removed this rubber mat to clean underneath, and I did notice that there is a bit of paint wear that occurs underneath this mat, and eventually I would assume that it would get down to bare metal. I think in some spots it was down to the primer on this tractor, but again, wasn't really anything that needed to be corrected. I just kind of cleaned underneath it and put the mat back on. And moving further back, unsurprisingly, no trouble with the PTO, mid or rear PTO. No problems with the transmission, the hydrostatic transmission. I do really like the 3-range transmission. I'm switching between low and medium all the time. Saves a lot of time being able to switch it into medium when you're carrying buckets over long distances. You do have to be a bit more careful. That's a lot of stress if the tractor is bouncing around a lot with a full bucket. But you can switch it into medium and travel a little bit faster over flat surfaces. Again, underneath the seat, you can look around, but you won't find any rust, surprisingly. And again, lots of dirt, lots of dust and dirt, but no rust to speak of. Now, as it is the middle of winter, the backhoe is off the tractor and the 3-point snowblower is on. I have stored this outside without any trouble in the past. This year, just happened to have room in the garage, so it's inside this year. Been quite a lot of discussions online about whether or not this implement is worth the money. I'll post a separate video about that. I'm pretty sure it's a long enough discussion to merit its own video. But to suffice to say, in our particular situation, I've used this backhoe quite a bit. Again, for the size, for the price, and taking into consideration the size of the tractor, it has more than met my expectations. The new one is a little bit different of a design. And I think the specs on it are a little bit higher than this one, but again, this particular backhoe, the BH65, has never I've never needed to do anything that I couldn't accomplish with this backhoe. It's been a very valuable addition to the tractor. And so storage is pretty easy. Always recommend tying these up because they will fall down over time. But again, no trouble with any of the hydraulic lines. The only issue that I did have was with the step. So the step did break at one point. Haven't really had a chance to weld it back. I believe on the new one they have fixed this. It's a little bit different of a design. I just step right onto it now. I'm not don't actually use the step. But again, overall, I am happy with it. And once again, to the back of the tractor, I've had no problems with the 3-point hitch, the rear PTO, anything like that. It's a bit of a pain, takes a little bit of practice to attach and detach the 3-point hitch. You need to put one side on when you're using the mid-mount mower, but after a few times, a little bit of practice, it can be done fairly quickly. Still takes me forever to line up and to reattach the backhoe. That is the worst part about this whole thing, is reattaching the backhoe. It just takes me forever. I don't know why. It doesn't seem to get any better with practice either. But you don't do it very often, so it's not a big deal. There is a way to use. You have to fabricate something to use the mid-mount mower with the backhoe on. To me, that's pointless because the backhoe weighs so much that you would be mowing your lawn as well as ripping it up in one pass. So it doesn't seem to be very practical. I did have the opportunity to purchase the rear snowblower about 4 years ago. It's a 60-inch rear snowblower. It's probably oversized for this tractor, but the 3-point hitch has no problem, seems to have no problem with the weight. There's plenty of power to move snow, and if it's a little bit thicker and a little bit heavier, you just go a little bit slower, and it powers through. And last but not least, my mid-mount mower that I dug out of storage. Clearly, I forgot to clean it before putting it into storage, but that happens sometimes. Now, one of the benefits of buying a tractor is just the overall ruggedness of everything, including the mid-mount mower. I've been watching a bunch of lawn tractor videos, and there is a significant difference. I mean, the solid steel that's everywhere, and the shaft drive, the top gearbox, the one piece, an incredibly thick belt that's on these mowers is quite impressive. Now, the first 2 or 3 years, I didn't use this very much at all. Most of my yard was mud and not grass. But as the projects have been getting done, the topsoil has been getting laid out and the grass seed has been growing. The hours on the mid-mount mower have steadily increased. Again, people are concerned about, you know, the difficulty in putting it on. It is a drive over deck, but you do have to manually get off the machine and hook everything up. It's really not that bad. Again, with practice, I've been steadily getting faster. It's to the point now where it's not a big deal at all. Just take the backhoe off and hook up the mower. I can usually get it done in about 10 minutes. Putting the backhoe back on usually takes me a lot longer. There are a lot of grease fittings. Obviously there's one on top of each spindle. There is one hidden down there, a bunch in the U-joints, one right there, and then one on the center of the shaft. But again, I've had no trouble and don't expect to have any problems with the mower deck. All right guys, hopefully you enjoyed this up close view of the B2320. After almost 6 years of ownership, 417 hours on the clock, it's held up really well. I have absolutely no complaints about owning the tractor. It's good because it's got a lot of work coming up for it. We took down some trees that were pretty rotten on one side of our property. And we've started leveling that area out, so it's got a lot of fill to move and some topsoil to spread out. We're gonna put some grass seed, and then the mower will have even more grass to cut. Other than that, we're also starting to put some trails in the back part of our property, so it's lots of gravel for this tractor to move. If you're in the market for one, and you're looking at used machines, if it was well maintained and, you know, not abused, I would have no trouble in buying a used machine. I was actually looking for a used machine when I was shopping around for one. I just couldn't find one in my area. There was absolutely nothing available, and I wasn't interested in trucking one in from out of town. So ended up buying one new. Now, there's lots more to cover with this, with these machines. I'll probably make a video discussing my experience with the backhoe, why I decided to go with a B series instead of a BX, or what was the one above, the B50? Was that the model? Anyway, why I ended up landing on the B2320. Everybody likes talking about tractors, so yeah, I'll do a few more videos discussing those topics. Anyway, that's about it for today. I'll see you later.